You already know what time it is. It's your boy DJ Richie Skye back with some tea, interviews, recaps, and more. And be sure to check the links in the description of this video for trips, for books, one-on-one sessions, and more. Now let's get into the tea.
So we're going to be talking about love and marriage, Huntsville, but what does Andy Cohen have to do with any of this? Well, the tea is allegedly there's a new Housewives city coming to the franchise, but internationally, right? So does that necessarily mean that it's going to be on Bravo? Maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. One never knows. But it's more than likely that it will be featured on, I think, what is sort of the Bravo equivalent in Canada. So just follow along with the story. Shout out to our friends over at Mr. Housewives for this bit of tea. Okay, so the caption reads that our good friend over at Mr. Housewives had heard rumors about a new international city, right? But that it would be Toronto. Now, back in the fall, apparently In Touch reported that Bravo was filming a pilot for a new project. That pilot was recently shown to Bravo's decision makers, and they were reportedly very pleased, which led to the alleged green light for a full season. So this cast has not yet been fully confirmed, but amongst the cast members are Keisha Shantae. Who is Keisha Shantae? It's a Canadian singer, Drake's ex, famously referred to as Kiki in his song In My Feelings. She also co-hosted 106 in Park with Bow Wow from 2013 to 2014. We also have Jessica Mulroney, a Canadian stylist and Meghan Markle's best friend. Jessica faced major backlash and was dropped by several partnerships after Sasha Exeter accused her of attacking her for supporting Black Lives Matter. We also have Sasha Exeter, a Black lifestyle influencer who exposed Jessica for her alleged racist, and bullying behavior, which that is going to be very interesting if that dynamic plays out, because we saw how racist, anytime you discuss race on Housewives, it can turn into a beautiful moment or it can turn into a disaster. And I think we saw some beautiful moments on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and we saw where it didn't go so well on the Real Housewives of New York City with the current incarnation. So we'll have to see how that plays out. You also have Natalie G, who is a filmmaker and festival programmer. Natalie is married to Rachel Robinson, and they share 3 children. And then you have Roxy Earl, a former cast member of the Real Housewives of Toronto that was produced by Slice TV. So that's sort of what I was talking about with the Bravo equivalent. Really, maybe not the Bravo equivalent, but you guys get what I'm saying. Anyway, she's an entrepreneur and media personality. So it is to be noted that this is the alleged cast lineup and possibly not quite the full cast. But I mean, I'm here for it. I'm here for content. Okay, that's what I'm here for. Bring me the content. Bring me Kiki, Do You Love Me from Drake's In My Feelings. Bring it all to me. Oh, baby, bring it all to me. Okay, Shamari DeVoe, gone from Housewives too soon. Bring it all to me. Okay. Let's get into the love and marriage Huntsville of it all, because we got to talk about this latest episode. Y'all, people are very passionate about this show. You listen, you gotta admit, some people are absolutely in love with this show, and some people are absolutely not in love with this show. But the fact of the matter is that for me, I love this show. And I know I sometimes enter the danger zone with the recaps, but honestly, it kind of goes along with the territory. I've learned to watch these shows from an observer's perspective. I do not absorb the feelings or get emotionally attached to this particular show as much as I do enjoy watching it from an observer's perspective, because I think if I get too emotionally tied to it, then it could really affect me in general. And I'm just not in that space no more. So when I watch these shows, I'm really watching for the storytelling of it all. So if you're trying to understand my perspective as I offer my review, then I hope that you can think of it that way. It's sad that I have to give this disclaimer when I recap this show. But again, we're often entering the danger zone with Love and Marriage Huntsville from a fan perspective. Just so I go ahead and give you the disclaimer right off the bat. Okay? That's my perspective. Okay? The episode is called Open House, Closed Mouths. And this is the episode description reads Trisha and Ken discuss opening a gym and marriage. And Maurice thinks Mel and Martel are lashing out due to unresolved trauma. Martel visits a therapist. Trisha attends Martel's open house and wants to know why Chris told Martel to reach out to her. So let's talk about the episode in general. I think if I had to rate it, I would give it a solid 9. I would give it a solid 9.5. I think we had some interesting revisits. I don't know that I would call it a reveal. And I know that I did put on the thumbnail exposing Chris, but hasn't Chris been at the center of this all along? And maybe we just didn't really pay attention to it? I don't know. And I would also like to add that this episode did not indeed feature Melody, but she was spoken about in this episode in relation to her inquiry about Maurice's DUI as well as the alleged lipstick. Okay. So she was spoken of. And in this episode, it was Trish who was doing the reality TV work of it all. Latricia has stepped up to the plate. Whether she is a willing participant or not, she is doing the reality TV work. Like her, loathe her, but at the end of the day, the girl worked this episode. Okay? She earned her check today. All right? And y'all say what y'all want. Know some of y'all don't like her, but I got to tell you from a perspective of someone who watches these shows, she did the work. Okay? She done ran around here. Now she done gave us a new element of this continuously evolving story of her and Martel and what they did or did not do when they first met. Her and Chris are cousins, didn't know it or something or other. How close are y'all related? Is it really a familial bond like that? So I mean, a lot of times we discover people that we did not know we were related to. So this does happen. Y'all know it does. Because you can go to any, especially in the country, right? You can name a country town and somebody be like, oh, do you know the so-and-sos? Oh, yeah. They're my cousins. You know what I'm saying? So I can see how that works. Trust me. Trust and believe. I get it. I know what I experienced. But again, she was doing she did some pot stirring in this episode. And she let the tea out of the bag that Chris Fletcher was the one who indeed told or encouraged, introduced, led the way, opened the door for Martel to meet with Latricia 4 years ago. She's not clear on whether or not the ink was dry on the divorce between Melody and Martel. But the question remains for everyone is, why would Chris Fletcher be introducing his now discovered cousin to Martel when it is not fully finalized that he is divorced? That is unclear. We're unclear about that. But it also seems to be a little bit of a pattern, I think, for even Latricia, as we also take a good hard look at the fact that she is not also divorced from her own ex. So there's a lot of pattern repeating here, right? I thought in this episode, like, she was signing paperwork at when Destiny came over a couple of weeks ago. And I thought, oh, girl, you are finally doing it. You are finally doing your big one. You are finally letting Marquez go, right? Not that she needs to let him go specifically, like she still wants him, but in terms of ending the marriage, it needs to come to an end. And so, as we have Ken sitting down with engineer Latricia, who is working to discuss, the past couple of weeks of events that have occurred. And, it also occurred to me that we did not see Letitia and Marceau in this episode either. Interesting. But they also were spoken about, or at least Marceau was. Latricia, I think, is in an interesting space. She claims not to have time to go and, she's gotten the paperwork signed and notarized, but she's yet to take it down to the courthouse. I'm not quite sure why she hasn't had that time, because she does seem to be able to work from home, or at least it looks as though she is here. And regardless, I mean, don't you get a lunch break? Could you not run down to the courthouse during a lunch break and slide that paperwork in? Or don't you have an attorney that can do? I don't know how their voice works. So y'all let me know. Can't she just, is it not just as simple as running on down to the courthouse? I mean, girl, what you waiting on? Like, for real. Like, you say you've been in a situation for 13 years too long. So, girl, it looks to me like I would be running. Okay. You are an athlete. You should have been there faster than anyone else at the court. You should be there before the judge there. Okay. You should be running so fast that you get there before the place opens. I would be knocking on the door early that morning, to be quite honest with you. So I just don't get it. Somebody help me. One of my legal experts, please chime into the chat. Someone who has had their Law and Order SVU university degree longer than I have, please let us know. I don't specialize in divorce, and neither does Norman. Okay? Norman does not know. Norman does not understand, and neither do I. But I do understand that, girl, you can't be, Ken is focused on marriage. Ken, you need to be focused on getting her down to the courthouse. Okay? You're like 10 paces ahead, and she is 30 paces behind you. Okay? This woman has not taken the paperwork down to the courthouse. You're talking about marriage. Bro, chill. Really, at this point, that's what I have to say about it, because you're racing down the aisle, and she has not even left her house. Okay? She doesn't have her dress yet. The bridesmaids ain't picked out yet. So, bro, the bridesmaids are still lingering from the first wedding. That's how far back she is from getting married. So, Ken, if I were you, I would be more focused on why she hasn't filed this paperwork yet than I would be in even speaking about a marriage. Period. All right, so there is that. All right, so this next conversation this was an interesting conversation to me. And I think it goes a long way towards explaining the group dynamics and where they currently are. Maurice goes to speak with Martel about the fallout between he and Marceau. Now, this scene would have hit me harder, I think, in terms of just someone who was watching for the story aspects alone, right? I'm taking the feeling out about everything that we know, right? If I were just looking at Maurice having a conversation with his friend who has fallen out with his brother in a major way, and looking at what we saw on the screen, and sticking only to that, this scene would have hit harder. But we know that Martel and Ariane just came out with this expose against Marceau. So because I felt that that expose did not do Martel any favors, if there were any perceived growth as a result of this conversation that Maurice is having with him, as it seems to have been filmed, then this scene would have hit me like, is Martel starting to realize that when he gets hurt, it is scorched earth for anybody in his vicinity as well as himself. And oftentimes it seems from what we see, particularly on the show and sometimes on social media, is that Martel will burn his house down to burn down whomever he's angry at the time. And that just doesn't bode well, because even after that exclusive, the Scotts were posting about their wins with their businesses. So they didn't even need to respond to it, because there was no need to respond to it. And we know that they're going to be, if they're not already filming for a new season. So will this play out? Probably will. Will it have any effect on the friendship? Probably not. It sounds to me like Marceau is absolutely done, but I do get Maurice trying to go and reason with Martel. And I think that Maurice's explanation of where Melody and Martel are and how their dynamic affects the group, I think that he is spot on in some of his assessments. I think that there is some residual hurt for Mel, probably from feeling like she was the one who was on the outs, and the group sort of rallied around Martel being the good guy, while she herself was experiencing another side of him. And so I think what we're seeing now is, a Mel that is like, I'm distancing myself from you guys because I don't know that I can trust you guys. That's what it feels like as a viewer of the show, right? So as you see her sort of have a, I got to have my own back attitude, and it's me against, it's me over everybody. That's likely where that comes from. And when you think about it in the sense of how real relationships and real friendship circles work, with particularly when you have friends who were that close and the marriage ending was so contentious, and it continues to be contentious to this day, I'm sure there has to be some thought in her mind, like, can I really trust these people, right? Then for the people who are involved, they're probably also thinking, what do we do? It's a tenuous situation. No matter which way you turn it, how am I supposed to show up for these two people who at one point in time were together and we loved them as a couple? How do we now navigate these waters, and how do we find the side that's right? And then do we ostracize the person who's in the wrong, and at which point in time? Because on reality TV, there's going to be times when your hero is going to be the villain. And let me explain what I mean by that. What I mean by that is, Nini's a great example of this, and so is Teresa Giudice, however you want to pronounce her last name. They are both main characters who have been or have felt, and their leading characters who have been or have felt like the odds were against them, that everybody on the cast was against them in some way, shape, or form, on some level, and they've had to fight, kick, scratch, and claw their way to a place where they were either, okay, y'all are just my coworkers now, and that's how I'm gonna deal with y'all. And in those situations, for some viewers, that person turns into a villain when that person is now in protective mode. And so then the other castmates then begin to feel the effects of that sort of offensive mode of communication or perceived communication, right? So what Maurice was describing to me, I think, is an accurate assessment of what we see happening in this group as it stands today, which will be interesting now because you have two major rifts that I think are forming or actually have formed. You've got the Martel versus the Scotts, being Marceau and Latricia, and then you've got Mel sort of versus Maurice and Kimmy. Because this is, while the conversation between Kimmy and Melody seemed to end respectably, I still think that there's going to be some lingering tension there. And as we will see in the next episode, based on the preview, that there's still lingering tension between Maurice and Melody as well. And it don't look like it's going to get any better for Martel and Latricia and Marceau either. So the reunion should be very, very interesting as well. All right, so let's move on to Latricia meeting up with Kimmy. Okay, so this scene was actually really good to me. I thought it was a great opportunity for Latricia to go and get some advice, because what we know is that she wants to leave, her engineering job, which is a 9-to-5 job, and she wants to become an entrepreneur. She wants to, coach and do the fitness and open up a gym, right? So, she's coming to Kimmy for guidance about being an entrepreneur. And, I thought that the advice that Kimmy gave her was absolutely spot on. I think that a lot of the cast members will probably give her some of that same advice. Being an entrepreneur is not for the weak, not for the faint of heart. You will oftentimes find yourself working, more hours than you did when you were working a 9-to-5. But it means more to you because it's personal and it's, sometimes feast or famine. You have to ride the waves. Some waves are up and sometimes you're down, and you have to be prepared for both. Okay. That's really the advice that Kimmy gave her. And I thought that was I love that we get to see these types of conversations play out on this show, because I think it goes a long way towards showing people who look like us what we can do when we get our ducks in a row, right? So I like this, and I want to see how that develops for Latricia, especially Latricia and Ken. Who Ken? I got Ken be. While I think he's a little oblivious to the Latricia issue, at least as it stands right now, and the issue being she is lagging and dragging her feet on this divorce, but he is going to be spot on with the Chris and Martel of it all later. But at this moment, it is when Latricia reveals to Kimmy that, oh, it was actually Chris Fletcher that introduced me to Martel, that provided this grand opening for the two of them to now have this ever evolving storyline of some tortured, non-love affair, whatever you want to call it. And Kimmy is just gooped and gagged and surprised, because this is another piece of the puzzle that seems to be a long, twisting, winding road of sometimes truths, half-truths, lies, or, we don't know what, honestly. And it's always, and it's, well, in one sense, I'm kind of like, Latricia, why didn't you just either lay it all out for us in the beginning or follow Martel's lead and act like you didn't know him? Because we're going to get a flashback of when the Latricia conversation comes up I'm going to actually go to that flashback now. And as the conversation is being discussed, Chris is acting really oblivious, like, well, how did you and Trish actually meet? I mean, how did this all come about? And it's like, well, bro, you did a really good acting job that day. Cause I mean, in the scene, and I don't know if we actually really did we see this? Because I'm like, if we saw it, whether or not we saw it or not, I mean, you did a good job acting, my brother. You sure did. Um, moving right along, there's a conversation that Martel has at his home with this therapist. The therapist has clearly been there before. I don't know if she's worked with Martel and the kids, but apparently they've been doing some work, right? I think that this is good to see. I think that therapy, I don't know if it's working, but hopefully he will continue down this path. At the end of the conversation with Maurice, you would have thought that some of that would have sunk in how his responses to things are going really scorched earth and impact the entire group and also himself. Again, that scene would have been more impactful did we not know what was going on in the present day with that expose, right? So this scene for me didn't hit as hard either because of where we know where we are in present day as well. So I think it's good to show that he is in therapy. But I think that there's a long road ahead. There's a long road ahead because he willingly admits, which is interesting because as we saw him and Ariane interact and we learned more about their relationship during the expose, I think that we learned more about them than we learned anything about Maurice, not Maurice, Marceau, but I just kind of feel like the two of their banter and her trying to get the intel on what he was doing while they were on these trips, but all the while kind of recognizing that, oh wow, like he's actually still in love with Mel. I mean, he basically admits it in this episode. So I don't like, how does that make her feel seeing that or hearing that? Does she care? I'm just curious because he basically said it in this episode later. So I really don't know. So we get to the event of the episode, which is, of course, Martel's open house. Why Latricia and Ken would actually really be there in real life, I have no idea. It would not make any sense for them to be there other than for this being an all cast event, right? Of course, Melody's not going to be there because she not trying to fool with him. Marceau and Latricia ain't trying to fool with him, so it don't make sense for them to be there. I'm assuming maybe Destiny was busy, so we have the rest of the cast there to film at this event, right? And this event would have been a non-event had it not been for Latricia and Ken. So that is likely why they were there. Because, like I said, in any other scenario, why would she go to that? It makes absolutely no sense. But because she has to be the bone collector in this episode and do the exposing, she is there to do her job. Hence what I said at the beginning of this video. All right, so now everybody has gathered to view the fruits of Martel's labor in the hopes that this home will sell, right? And so as everyone gathers and the ladies gather on the inside, they have their own little ponderosa because Kenny knows there's something that needs to be said. And Latricia also knows that she needs to let Nell know that it was your man, Chris Fletcher, who introduced Martel and Latricia, in which Miss Nell dashes out the door so fast, faster than Latricia can get down to the courthouse to file those papers. Yes, indeed. Miss Nell dashes outdoors. Chris, I'm going to need you to come inside because I just found out that you was the one who actually hooked up Latricia and Martel. But before that happens, the men are outside. And the men are discussing, initially, they're discussing the issues between Marceau and Martel, but that turns into Ken versus Marquez. And Martel really seems to take Marquez's side in this situation. Although we learned earlier that Marquez was actually in town the entire weekend of the kids' event and only spent time with them or at the event, but he spent absolutely zero time, according to her, allegedly, according to them, um, with the kids outside of that, and that the kids were so embarrassed by them that the daughter did apparently doesn't even want to call, just is just calling him by name now. Like, just it's that bad. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, Ken, are you there just for the check of the show, like just for the show, or are you trying to really build that bridge and that relationship back? Because otherwise, it seems like you can just probably stay in Atlanta. But it does give Latricia and Ken something else to do. But I'm just saying, it's like it's weird to me that if you know that this man, if you're claiming that this man is not spending any time with the kids outside of the camera time, girl, what you holding up for with signing these, with taking this papers to the courthouse again? I'm baffled. I'm baffled. I am baffled. Color me baffled. Anyway, um, so Martel thinks that Ken needs to back off from Latricia until after she is finally divorced and not push her into the divorce. And from where I'm sitting, I mean, there may be something to his advice. I don't know, because I'm like, girl, why ain't you have these papers? I'm not going to ask that question no more because it don't even matter. If Ken like it, I love it. But what Ken don't love, okay, is this explanation that Chris Fletcher stumbles his way through when the gang all gathers together to finally confront the issue of whether or not he did introduce Martel to Latricia, knowing good and well that the ink wasn't dry, wasn't I don't on the divorce between Melody and Martel, especially with Miss Nell and Chris being mentor to the stars to Melody and Martel. Why would you, on any level as mentor to the stars? See, I'm about to take your title back. I'm gonna have to take your mentor title now. We're gonna have to take it back. We're gonna have to take. I'm gonna say it and take it back. Like, say it and take it back. Like Dr. Heavenly said, say it and take it back. Mentor to the stars. Why would you tell your mentee? Why would you coach your mentees, then take one mentee to the side and say, "Yeah, man, there's some good-looking girls at the gym, and you know one of them just so happens to be my cousin." Like, what? Anyway, apparently this was at a time when they didn't know they was related. Go figure. And allegedly, according to Chris, Martel was asking if there was any good looking girls at the gym. And lo and behold, there just so happened to be one. And her name is Latricia. Yes. But Chris says, I didn't tell Martel, yeah, she got a banging old body. Yeah, she in shape. Yeah, she got all the curves. Yeah, she got the body, yada, 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 yada. No, sir, I did not say all that. I ain't say she was fine or nothing like that. I mean, it was just in general. And Ken is looking like, Negro, please. And I think we was all looking at Chris Fletcher like, bro, like, you gonna have to come up with something better than that, because this don't make no kind of sense. If you spotted her pacifically, okay, and you called her out pacifically, like, there seemed to be intent behind it. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm. But see, the problem is that Latricia is also an unreliable narrator. Okay, an unreliable narrator is like, it's like a thing that they talk about in books, right? Wherein the narrator of the story is unreliable because you really can't trust what they're telling you, because they're telling you from their perspective, and their perspective can sometimes be skewed. And as we know, Trish, at this point, isn't always as truthful as we would probably like her to be. So we don't really know. And now it also sounds like Chris is stumbling, fumbling, falling, tripping, you know, hop skipping and a jumping through this explanation. And it's just kind of like giving, I don't believe it. Like it just giving that. And Ken is looking like, I ain't stupid. Like something is up in this situation, and I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. And I'm looking at Norman like we got to get to the bottom of it too. You know what I'm saying? Like somehow, some way, we're gonna get to the bottom of it. Because I mean, that's what the show was given. So now we got to know. Now we got to know. Now Norman got to know. Okay, we all wrapped up in it like it's young and the restless. Okay. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the episode. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it. Again, this group is so intense with their scenes and stuff like that, and as it's playing out, and as the relationships are continuing to evolve, and as new information kind of gets trickled out, it's actually very intriguing to me. So I don't know how y'all view it, but that's just how I view it. It's entertaining, but there are so many aspects of real life that are actually really, really happening to these people. So it's also, I think it also feeds into the emotion of the viewer. And you almost can't help but feel an emotional connection to one character or another, right? I hate to say character, but one person or another, right? So I think it's going to be interesting to watch these next couple of episodes play out as we head into the reunion. Um, we'll just have to wait and see. So let me know what y'all think about this episode and what you would rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Y'all know I'm always interested in hearing. And with that being said, of course, I will catch you all in the next video.
Now that you've watched today's video, let's get into this group trip to Cape Town, South Africa. Yes, y'all, Skye Squad, we are hitting South Africa, and we are hitting it hard. April 10th through the 17th of 2025. You can click the link in the description of this video to get more information and to reserve your spot. Now, we're going to keep this intimate because we have a lot to do. We are going to be looking at real estate. We're going to be learning about retirement and permanent visas, dual citizenship, buying and purchasing land. We are going to be looking at it all because we want options in South Africa, baby. And listen, Cape Town is one of my favorite cities. So of course, we're going to be doing some of my favorite things. We are going to be hitting the wineries. We are going on a safari. We're going to Table Mountain. We're going to some of my favorite restaurants. Let me tell you, one of them is Gold Star, baby. If you know, you know. We're going to be meeting with some expats who have relocated from the United States to Cape Town as well. This is going to be a luxury experience, okay? So we're talking doing the absolute most. So if you've ever wanted to go to Cape Town, South Africa, but maybe you didn't have the group to go with, maybe you just didn't have the right people that wanted to go and experience it with you, this is an opportunity for you to come with us. Now, I only have about 10 to 12 spots available. Yes, because again, I'm trying to keep this thing intimate, and I know that what type of experience I want it to be. So get in while you can, y'all. Trust me, in 2025, we are going to be needing all the options that we can get, and I am going to do my utmost to bring us the most that we can possibly get in and out of the country. So come with me to South Africa. The group trip is going to be lit. April 10th through the 17th. Go ahead and click the link in this description of this video so that you can reserve your spot today. Cape Town, South Africa awaits.